I'm funny with like dates and numbers. So we
Yeah.
launched it on November 11th, 2011.
Okay.
If anyone wants to know, my numerology is 11.
Hi, and welcome back to the Unconventionalist podcast. I'm your host, Mark Leruste, and this is the show about what it's really like to turn your message into a movement. Each week, I sit down with an inspiring guest to pick their brains and pick their hearts about what it's really like to live a more meaningful and purposeful life, about the ups and the downs and the lessons learned from both. Now, I've got a very special episode today to share with you, but before I dive into today's episode, I want to let you know that over the years, I've been hearing so many entrepreneurs and business owners struggling with the very idea that their story matters. And if they even see that their story matters, they struggle with the idea that anybody would care about what they have to say, and how would that even link with trying to have a bigger impact. Well, I'm here to tell you that not only in a world of a digital, noisy world that we live in, the one who has the best story wins, that actually people are craving and dying to connect with you on an emotional level. And there's nothing more powerful than you sharing your story clearly with authority so that the world pays attention. So I'm launching a 6-week online program where we're going to have some digital communities with some guided coaching from me, and I'd love to invite you to come and join. It's going to be one of the most amazing things we do this year, because truly one of my life's mission is to help you communicate your story with passion. So if that sounds something like you, if you want to start really turning your fans into your customers and your customers into your fans, and want to connect and engage on an emotional level, make sure to come and check it out. I'll put all the details in the show note. There's only going to be a handful of people I'm going to be working with. So if that's you, get in touch. We're kicking off on the 18th of February, 2021. I can't wait to get started. Right, so today I'm super excited to share with you my new friend, that we connected online via the Scribe community, and it's Jadah Sellner. She's like an incredible human who's done some pretty epic things in her life, but brings a lot of depth and wisdom and intuition to the business conversation that I feel is simply not being spoken to enough. Now, you might recognize Jadah by her features in Oprah Magazine, in Forbes, her TEDx talk. She was also keynoting the World Domination Summit with Chris Guillebeau, and she has written a best-selling book, but she also was the co-founder of Simply Green Smoothies that generated over $1 million in revenue and over 1 million followers in just 2 years. She exited that company in 2016. She talks about that and the emotional journey that is linked around that entire process, but we went deep into what it actually means to show up in business, to lead with love, and the difficult and hardship conversation that we're having in today's world around coronavirus and global pandemic and lockdowns and the trauma that will come with. And she tells a personal story of how almost drowning on the Big Island helped her understand that if we are to survive and thrive in today's crazy world, then it's all about embracing the waves and meeting the wave as opposed to trying to fight the wave. So it's a powerful conversation. If you get anything from today, please let us know by leaving a review and a rating under this video, or go on Apple Podcasts to subscribe and leave a rating. It makes a huge difference. It enables us to have this podcast being heard by more people, and that is thanks to you. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the one and only Jadah Sellner. All right, Jadah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Mark. I feel like we've had conversations behind the scenes on Boxer, so it's nice to have that face-to-face conversation in real time.
100%, and also much appreciated. You just mentioned that how early it is on your end, and I feel both super bad and really grateful. So thank you for waking up early. And did you manage to get your whole grounding routine, morning ritual, meditation, that stuff?
Yeah. And I'm actually naturally an early riser. And my husband, I don't know, it's interesting because he's usually like on it, but he's been like trusting his body and like, and just like allowing himself to sleep in. And so I was like, hey, baby, because we meditate together and we do Wim Hof breathing together. So that's a 21 minutes together.
Wow.
So I was like, can we do it at like 6:45? Like I need to get in the shower. I need to be in my office. So that was kind of the puzzle that I had to
amazing.
do.
Well, look, super grateful. Look, I'm really excited to speak with you. And I think it's interesting. It's one of these conversations with you where I'm like, we could take this a million different ways. This conversation really could go, and what's interesting is I had all this kind of questions, and you've got such an interesting past and present and future. But I was just listening to your podcast. I'm not hiding, I'm healing. And anyone listening to this, I really recommend go and check it out. Put it in the show notes and stuff. But I mean, you've had a pretty big year, pretty tough year, right? Like in 2020, and so much that has happened. And one of the things I wanted to pick up on that was really powerful to me, I think the metaphor you used, was when you almost drowned with your bonus dad, which by the way, I love that expression. I've never heard it before, bonus dad. And what you learned through the process, having to surrender to the waves that almost took you out. Like, do you mind like kicking off around that? Would that be all right for you? Like, I know it's early for you, so it's like, oh my God, going straight into like the trauma, but it was a really powerful kind of insight into how to handle 2020 and beyond, or 2021.
Yeah. It was Christmas Day on the Big Island, and this really popular boogie boarding beach, right? So people are bodyboarding, they're boogie boarding. There's also lifeguards everywhere. So it's just Christmas Day, a packed beach day on the Big Island. And I was with my bonus dad, my mom, my little brother Max, and George. And so this was actually before Zoe was born. And so Christmas Day, and George and I were playing in the waves, and then I go out with my bonus dad. It's just the two of us, and we go into the ocean. We're catching waves, and then all of a sudden I can no longer touch the sand anymore. Like, my feet can't touch. And my bonus dad he was reaching his arm back to kind of like pull me back to closer to shore, but I had got caught in the rip current. And so I was treading water and I couldn't move forward. Like, I couldn't move towards the shore. And I remember seeing my bonus dad, like, he had to make a decision, like, I could go back to shore and try to help, or I could go with her. And so he actually went with me. So we were both taken by the rip current and just treading water. And our bodies started to drift towards almost like this large, like, rock cliff, like jagged, like scary. And the waves were just they were so high on where it took us. And so the waves just kept going, like, just crashing over us. And so my bonus dad, he's a really good swimmer, but obviously not a lifeguard to like swim me back to shore. And so he just told me, like, when the waves come, go underwater, like, don't fight the waves, like, trying to like tread above these big waves that are crashing above you. And so I'm just like in panic. Like, I don't know how long I can tread for, right? You do these things when you're a little kid trying to just tread for water. But this is like life or death situation, like,
here. Like doggy swim, like,
yes, that's what I was doing. I'm like, that's what you're supposed to do, right? And so every time the wave came, I would go underwater and just let the waves that were so turbulent, they were kind of rolling on top of us. Instead of fighting it, I was going underwater, and then I would come up just quickly just to catch my breath. And then I'd look right behind me, and another huge wave was crashing. And so I had to go right back underneath.
And what's going on like through your head? Because you must have been, I know the way that you talk about it, it's kind of like almost matter of fact, and it was this, but it must have felt pretty scary when you're like out of your comfort zone in so many more ways than none, and you're getting smashed by these waves. You've got probably seawater in your mouth. Your eyes are all stingy. You don't know where bonus dad is, you know, and you're kind of like, you're kind of going, oh my God, like, what's going through your head?
Yeah, it was, for me, I was just in this place of survival, right? There's actually not too much that's going in, except I don't know how long I can swim for. Like, I don't know when my arms are going to give. I don't know when my legs are going to give. Like, am I going to crash into this big rock. Like it just, for me, it was just a constant, like, I'll just keep catching my breath until I can't anymore. And so it was, I'm definitely, my body physically was in fear, but also like, it invited me to the frickin' present moment, right? Of like, all I can do.
You weren't thinking about bills you needed to pay or clients you needed to chase or none of that. Right.
No. And my bonus dad like waved the lifeguards. But it was just like, I just don't know how long I can do this for. Like, this is like really intense and I'm getting tired. So that, the lifeguards did come and it felt like Baywatch, like they come and like
I heard they were babes.
Yes, they were total babes. I was like, oh, these guys are hot. And they asked like my bonus dad, like, do you want to ride like back to the shore too? And he could have swam back, but he's like, I'll take the ride back. And so we actually swam further, like, deeper into the ocean to pass the rip current and then kind of coming back. And as we're being kind of pulled back, right, they're swimming and carrying us, the whole beach, like everyone there, it's Christmas Day, everyone's standing up, like, what, when something happens. And my mom and George, they're like standing up, like, where's Michael and Jadah? They weren't thinking that was us, like they're just
crazy.
like, those people, I can't believe they did that. And then I come in and I'm just exhausted. Like like you mentioned trauma, and I just felt this like buzzing, like nervous sensation in my body, just really, really shook to come back to shore and to have just gone through all of that.
Yeah, that's mad. And what was interesting when you shared that story on your podcast, right? It's how you made the metaphor between that and 2020. And really, as I'm hearing you saying that, I'm like, what a metaphor for entrepreneurship and business. Like, I don't know for how long I can go on. I'm so resisting, like I'm holding on. Like, what did that teach you about our instinct to fight back versus the requirement to surrender?
Yeah, I think that was really the takeaway for me, is that we can't fight these waves that take us under, right? And actually cause us to not be able to breathe. And I experienced that all through 2020 with Black Lives Matter, with the death of George Floyd. I live in Northern California, so we experienced intense fires and like literally could not breathe in our homes, where it smells like ashtray. So there's this, this invitation of that we can't fight these circumstances that come in our lives, and then we actually have to surrender to life's flow, to allow ourselves to not fight in that way, because it actually makes it a lot harder and more tiring versus surrendering to what's in front of us. And I also think how important like human connection is. Like imagine if my bonus dad wasn't there, right? To kind of guide me through that experience, and how much isolation that we have felt in 2020. So just the power of human connection and people guiding us when we can't always see things.
Coming over to help.
Yeah. So also being able to surrender and receive support. And that's been such a big invitation for me in dealing with grief and loss. 2019, I lost a lot of really important people to me in my life, and that we have to receive support, that we have to stretch our capacity to receive love. And for me, I'm an over giver and over deliverer. I want to like love up on everyone. Like, how can I help? How can I be of service?
And so I've got to, I've got to give you kudos and credit for this. So you and I met through our participation in Scribe Media, Tucker Max's, one of his companies, and people who listen to this, you can go and check out my previous interview with Tucker Max. But and I think you and I started about the same time. Were you part of the first cohort as well in March last year? Yeah. So you and I were part of the first cohort. And I remember like we were on the calls, and you would DM me and going like on Zoom, like, oh my God, I've got the same thing. I can so relate. And you were starting messaging. And then I'd see you show up on Facebook, and like, and I know this is something I want to talk to you at one point about from your previous company, one of your values or your mantras, whatever it was, no comments left behind. And you're like on Facebook, like sending these really epic kind of encouragement or feedback or like advice or tips or whatever. And you were so generous with your time. I remember being like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, you know, is that something that you've always been, or is it something that you've kind of learned and grown to be more?
Yeah, I think for me, following the impulse for generosity is really important to me, to not second guess or overthink a way of showing up for other people. So, and I'm trying to think if, you know, where did that generosity come from? Like, was it when I was a child, or because I can't think of like the very specific moment. I just,
because you had a child. I mean, because I mean, in your talk, I want to say, was it? I don't know if it was your TEDx talk or was it your talk at Chris Gillibo's event, where you kind of shared your background story, and you know that it was like you had a tough childhood, and so that's why I'm just wondering, like, you could have had every reason to be sour about life and just be, you know, but you didn't, and you aren't. So I'm just curious to hear, like, if there's something at some point that kind of helped you or shifted.
Yeah, I think I have a natural tendency to be a protector of people. So like the underdog. I remember when I was a kid, my aunt, she would always kind of talk about grandma, her mom, you know, like, and I'm like, grandma's right here. She can hear you. I'm like, don't say bad things about grandma. Like, I just think like goodwill, and like, I don't know, like we just have to be so compassionate for one another. I don't ever want anyone to hear like that someone's saying bad things about them. And that's actually one of my deepest fears, is, and I say this to my husband, like, are you talking about me behind my back inside your head? Like, that's
why would you ever ask a man that? Like, why would you ever ask your partner that? It is healthy to have like really negative thoughts at times and then release them into the world. That, you know, anger is a healthy emotion.
Right. But I think that's a lesson that I learned last year, being able to be angry. So I've actually always kind of been the peacemaker, harmony, love, and like, don't rock the boat, don't disrupt, don't make, you know, people mad or angry. So that's a real big piece for me that I with Black Lives Matter, I really allowed myself to be enraged and to feel that. And that was very shocking for even my husband to experience that range in me, because we've been so, we're not like huge blow up fighters. Like, we're both very peaceful, kind, patient humans. But then we bottle up that emotion of anger inside of us, and I've learned to express it.
And what has that given you? What has you allowing yourself to experience and express anger given you?
It's given me permission to be like a whole human, and not to suppress to make other people happy. So that's been a really huge gift for me, like that I'm allowed to be angry. Like, I'm allowed to have a range of emotions and to fully lovable. Express. Still lovable.
I'm still lovable if I'm angry. I can still connect and be in connection if I'm angry. And I get that. Like, I'm hearing, like, I get that. Like, the whole, you know, for me, it was a survival mechanism. As a kid, I had to choose between love or anger, and I chose love. And so anger became like a no. Like, we don't go there. And so it's still in that process. Because one of the things that I heard you talk, one of the things that made me laugh when I was hearing your podcast, you said your 23andMe results are like all over the place. You're like from every continent apart from Australia. So this journalist must be like, why? What happened with Australia? What's wrong with Australia, right? So like, you've got this incredible heritage from all over the world. And again, I recommend people to go listen to your story, because you go a bit back into your story about your relationship with your dad, who who passed away, and this difficult relationship of not being in contact with him for 20 years. And then you reconnecting to your African-American identity, being Black, while all this Black Lives Matter is happening. That must have been hard. Like that must have been like, especially you must have felt lonely or angry. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, definitely lonely, which is like the one feeling that I don't want to feel, or the why I'm so generous with comments, because I'm like, I don't want people to feel alone, right?
Yeah.
And so that was my initiation. Was I felt really alone even in my own family. My husband's, he's Filipino and German. My daughter, she presents more Asian. And so just kind of feeling like alone in that, but also desiring this reclamation of my Black identity and to reconnect to the Black side of my family, because there had been so much division from my father's behavior. So that felt very lonely. And then I started to also see in my circles and spaces of like, oh, wait, I'm the only person of color in this group. Oh, wait, I'm usually the only person of color on these stages. Oh, wait, like, so it also just, there was this, this bit of sadness of like, wow. And also the loneliness comes from, I'm not all Black, right? Like I'm, my father's Black, my mom's Chinese and white, and also feeling lonely and like, I'm not Black enough. You know, like I'm not Black enough to be here. So I'm always having to say like, I'm a multicultural Black woman, you know, and I had to do that as a young child. Like I remember wanting to stand so close to my father so people could be like, hey, this is my dad. Like I'm Black. I belong here. Y'all
yes, I'm legitimate. Well, you know, and it's interesting, right? Because it's not a question of color or different, I guess even your continent. So my mom's British, my dad's French, and so I was born in France. And so there's always this weird thing where in France I was never French. They used to call me le rose beef, which is like slang for the Brit. And in England I was the frog, like I was French Mark. So you never really belong. I mean, this is my experience. I never really belonged in anywhere. So everyone was like, it was always the same question. Oh, but if France and England would play football, who would you pick? You know, and it was always this kind of weird questions of identity of who am I if I'm not a 100% French or 100% English, and finding, and I'm, you know, and my kid, so my partner's German, French, I'm British, French, Welsh. So our kid's born in London, like it's just this whole European little melting pot. And I wonder, like, what does identity mean to you? Yeah, that's a little bob of a question for you there, Jadah. Like, what does identity mean to you?
Yeah, this is an interesting question with identity, because I've been clinging to identity all my life to find a sense of belonging. Like I geek out on those personality tests, even like Myers-Briggs, human design. Like I'm like, because I am trying to find the others that are like me. So if I can't find someone who is all the different cultures as me, like maybe you're an ENFP like me, maybe you're a manifesting generator. Yeah. So for me, how I don't know if I can describe what identity means to me, but I can describe how I use identity to find human connection. Is to find people like me that we can relate and connect and have some common ground, which is that sense of belonging, right? Of community. Like I believe in this, like, you know, we can have identity around our values, but also that things can shift and change. And that's what I'm learning as I get older, to not use identity to kind of put me in this restrictive box,
like more of a fluid, like a fluid
kind of, like I'm choosing this identity for a reason. Like I'm taking it on, and that's, you know, very intentional for me to like really embrace my Black identity for myself, to kind of integrate it into everything else, because I'm more interested in like learning more about that side of me, to not to not diminish that part of my heritage and my story and my lineage.
Yeah. And to own it and to claim it. Yeah. And there's also the identity we have around parents when we become parents, right? Like not to fall into the, I'm only just a mom, I'm only just a dad. And there's nothing, It's not the only, but I find myself in that. I don't know if you can identify yourself. It's like, oh, I'm a mom and I love it. I'm a dad and it's great. And I'm also a partner and I'm also a daughter, a friend, and I'm also, a business leader, whatever it is, and shifting between those worlds. How do you, because I know we've exchanged some stuff offline and stuff, but I'm just curious to hear, how do you manage that? Like, how do you juggle and that's what you're all about, that I feel like you're all about, is how do you lead with love and create a business that doesn't take you away from the things you love, but it gives you an opportunity to do more of the things you love, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how do you consolidate those worlds and navigate between them?
Yeah, instead of consolidate, integration is a really a big word for me. It's like, how do they dance together?
Yes.
I'm always like a 2-for-1 or 3-for-1. Like, how can I combine several things that need to happen? So, I need to move my body. I also need to spend time with my family. Let's go on a hike, right? So I the same thing. I do like walk and talks with my friends, or I love business. I love like masterminding and strategizing with friends. And so ways that I spend time with my friends is like, let's go mastermind. Let's go on a mastermind, retreat, a getaway. So I try to find ways to kind of stack my identity, my several identities in ways that I can kind of appease them in a concentrated amount of time. And I do resonate with like not being just a mom. But also there's nothing wrong if that is like someone's full expression of like, I want to pour my time, my energy and resources to being the best mom I can be, because not everyone needs to like start their own business or work inside 100%. A company, and you can have full purpose and meaning in showing up in that. I knew for me that wasn't the case. Becoming an entrepreneur, my daughter was 18 months old when I started my first business, because I was in mommy world for a good year.
Because I heard you say this. So I heard you talk about like mum blogging, like you were kind of into that world.
Totally. I had a parenting blog called Family Sponge, which was this website I started with my friend Jen Hansard, and we met in a mom's meetup group in Southern California.
What year was this? Do you know?
Yeah, that was which year the blog started?
Like just roughly around that time when you kind of started getting into the whole mum blogging thing before Simply Smoothies. Like, I'm just curious about. I'm funny with like dates and numbers. So we launched it on November 11th, 2011. Okay.
If anyone wants to know, my numerology is 11.
Basically, if anybody has got like a test that Jadah has not taken, then just like reach out on Twitter and just plug it in.
Yes. So we started that blog in 2011, and I was learning about online marketing from actually my husband's aunt, who did e-zines, like had an email list, and I was super fascinated because we had our brick and mortar business in Kauai that we ended up shutting down, and I knew I still wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I knew I still wanted the flexibility and time to have my daughter by my side, or to be able to show up in her classroom. So I was just trying to figure out this online thing. And in 2011 is actually when I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week.
Okay.
Like just trying to figure out like, how can I work 4 hours a week?
I could do this. Like I could do a supplement company and like The Muse. He calls it Muse, doesn't he? I think in the book it's called the Muse. Like finding a business that you can. Anyway.
Yeah, I thought this parenting blog that I would make 6 figures in 6 months. Like I truly, in my full heart of hearts, believed that. I knew our rent was going to increase, and I was like, baby, like this is going to take off. Don't you, like, I'm studying, like we got this. Like when the rent increases, we're going to be able to afford it. I'm going to make 6 figures in 6 months. That 6 months like came, the rent increased and we had to move out. So it didn't happen. And that parenting blog was like over negative $2,000. We were in the red, and that blog never made any money.
Okay. But on the blog, is that where you were kind of sharing some of the recipes of some of the smoothies you were making? And you were just kind of like, hey, this is like a little green smoothie that I'm making. And people started going, hey, can you share the recipe? And because that's an interesting, I thought, origin story behind, that didn't work, but it was kind of almost what led to the next adventure.
Absolutely. I mean, I think everything leads to the next adventure. Like there's a skill set, a tool, a human that you kind of gather on your adventures and take on to the next one. I failed many times in business before I actually got to hit a home run.
Yeah, 100%. Without diving too much into it, because people can go and dive into so many more content that you've already got out there where you tell much more of the story. What I found fascinating, especially in today's world, when you hear the numbers that you were hitting with Simply Green Smoothie when you started off, they're insane. Like, I mean, I forgot what interview I was listening. I think it was maybe with Chris Ducker, I forgot. But I was listening and you just kind of randomly like, I started this Instagram thing and I started posting and that grew to like, 1,000, whatever it was. I mean, you're just casually dropping these numbers. I'm just going, you know what? How many did started followers? I mean, just drop a little bit of knowledge just for people listening to this so they get some context on the craziness.
Yeah. I'll share the numbers and then I'll share my philosophy on how so, and we grew our following to over 400,000 followers on Instagram, over 300,000 Facebook fans.
How long to get there? Because I think also that's helpful to like, how many years or how much time did you get to like 400,000?
Yeah. I think that was about two like in the 2 to 3 year range, and then we kind of plateaued, right? You kind of get to a place and you're like, I'm done posting like this, like so.
Because that's something full on though. You must have been posting every day, like multiple recipes.
No, I'm like anti everything. I'm anti like online marketing. Like I know the tools, I know the strategies, and then I rebel and do it my way.
Yeah.
So we posted 2 to 3 times a week on Instagram, but I spent the rest of that time connecting with other people and building relationships. And this is where
no comments left behind.
So, and being able to, go on other people's pages and like, hey, like I noticed that you post this green smoothie, let us know when, make this recipe, like just like that one-to-one intimate connection is kind of what builds the snowball. But we try to go big and wide in the beginning. I will also say with those numbers, we didn't have paid advertising or guest, we didn't guest post, no affiliates. But I think for us, I never had metrics goals. So I talk about love of metrics. Yeah. And so we never actually had like number goals of like, we want to reach this many followers. We want this many people on our email list. Like I just wanted to make
conscious of it? Were you conscious of it though, that at the time when those numbers are coming in and you're just kind of seeing the growth of, are you conscious that that's a pretty unusual and epic growth? Even back then, were you like conscious of it? It's like, hey, we're onto something's
Oh, absolutely. The numbers validated an idea, right? Because I had a Family Sponge Instagram account. Yeah. And that wasn't building any traction. So that's when I knew we had to start a website about simple green smoothies, because I was like, I don't think these people are parents like that are following us. It'd be really confusing. Yeah. So Simple Green Smoothies wasn't supposed to be a website, wasn't supposed to be a business, anything like that. But the numbers gave us another, like it validated an idea. Yeah. And so I had to lean into like where the traction was happening.
Yeah. And, and again, people can go and listen to it. But I remember when you talked about, I think when you started deciding to do a challenge and then you launched a challenge and then you decided to launch this like program, and like when you opened up and it just filled out and the numbers are kind of great. So people could go and check that out. It's incredible. You had a recipe book that came out. So you co-authored this recipe book. You went through all that stuff. And I don't know what you're comfortable able to talk about, right? But I'm just curious to hear, how has the transition been? And I don't know if it's to separate from the identity of, but when we have a kind of, and I put air quotes because success means something different to everyone, right? But when you've had a pretty successful venture, such as Simply Green Smoothies, had like a huge following, all this stuff, and you exit, how was that for you, that transition period of like, I'm no longer just, or again, just the co-founder of, but now I'm actually building my own thing. I've got my own little venture, my personal branding, like all this kind of stuff. What was that transition like? I'm just curious to hear in your words.
It was exhausting.
Mm.
It was really challenging and scary. I was filled with so much doubt and confusion, and talking about identity, having identity crisis, like, who am I? I had so much fear that no one would ever invite me onto their podcast again or speak on their stage again, because I wasn't linked to Simple Green Smoothies anymore. There was a huge clinging to that identity and the numbers, like all the like love over metrics. I was like, but all those metrics are really cool, and like that's going to be taken away from me. I created these like what I call like entrepreneurial golden handcuffs, right? Where we build something massive and people are impressed by it, right? So there it's feeding into your ego of accomplishment and achievement. So I had a really hard time stripping myself from the identity of being like inside the business, even though I knew that like my thumbprint, like my identity was weaved in, like the love, like, peace, love, and leafy greens. Like that was my sign off, like, those
peace,
things.
Love, and leafy greens.
Yes. Now my sign off is warm hugs.
Yeah.
I'm just like, if I can infuse love into anything that I create and put out into the world, but, it was exhausting even as I was making the decision to exit the company. Like I would just be like slumped on the couch. Yeah. My husband just saw me so miserable. It was really, really hard. And then you have these people who are like, don't leave. Why don't you like stay in, but just do the, like
change
just
your role,
all these.
or just
yeah.
Yeah.
I really tried. I tried to do so many things, and it just, my heart, Oprah binge like nobody's business. Like if you watch like her hour interviews, there's this one she did at Stanford that my soul is like, I need to watch that again. Like watching her, it reminds you to really just trust that quiet whisper in your heart, before it like becomes like, she's like, then it's a pebble and then it's a rock that just like knocks itself upside your head, like it gets louder and louder and actually more challenging and more harder. Yes. And I felt like I was crazy for wanting to leave.
But I want to pause there for a second, because what I love about what you're speaking to is so many people can relate to this in different ways, where on all things external could seem like you have everything you would want and it looks like you're having great success. Again, I'm always doing these kind of air quotes, but deep down it can feel all sorts of wrong and you're not sure why, and everyone's trying to tell you otherwise. And sometimes you've just got to listen to that voice that says, yes, but, or yes, and, right? Like, yes, and I want to try this different thing. Was that something that helped you to pull the trigger, for lack of better words, of like to actually just go, okay, this is happening now. I've come to terms with it, or I'm mourning, or...
That's not how it works. It takes like 3 years to listen to that voice. I've noticed it in all of my friends who are in transitions and looking to step into a new body of work. It takes about 2 to 3 years to listen to that voice, just because of societal pressure. Also, I'm a mom. I became the primary, person that brought in the majority of revenue. And like my husband quit his job because of the company. So there was a lot of financial responsibility on me as well. But what I know about myself is like, if my energy isn't there, I will sabotage so I don't make money anyways. I will my soul will like rebel and figure out ways to not show up and do the work. So I'll I'll be very sneaky and sabotage that growth. And like even in Simple Green Smoothies, we started to stagnate and we started to dip because like my heart wasn't in it anymore. Like I was done. And the core
and did your co-founder
reason,
see this? Oh, sorry, go for it.
Oh yeah. I definitely want to talk about that too. The core reason why I left was because once I started speaking on stages and telling my story, sharing the behind the scenes strategies of like how we did it on podcast, I love that way more than talking about the health benefits of chia seeds. I'm not a cook. You know, we had a second book deal on the table that I walked away from because it was a cookbook, like of recipes. I'm like, I hate cooking. I actually don't hate cooking anymore. That's new since quarantine and shelter in place. So what I noticed was the business model that I built with Simple Green Smoothies, it wasn't aligned with how I wanted to express myself in the world. Like I had built a business, like a passive, like, like a digital e-product. We post on Instagram, beautiful photos. I don't like taking pictures. I don't like cooking.
It's kind of you accidentally fell into this. It feels like it was
totally.
Like before you knew it, it's like the snowball effect that you kind of started off as this kind of little thing. It's like, whoa, it's become this huge beast that I'm no longer in control of, but I have to run with.
Yeah. And I love to use my voice to express myself. And I was like, can we start a podcast? Can we start a YouTube channel? Like there was just no ways for me to, I just felt crunchy and I didn't feel fully expressed in the business. But when I got on those stages, when I was on these business podcasts, I was just lit up on fire. And I'm like, I want that.
I get that.
So, and I was really passionate about the business in the sense of learning how to build a business, build a
and
team,
the community, right?
Like
one of the big things is like you're really kind of, your whole message around like lead with love and, connect. And it's not about scale. It's not about big data and metrics and vanity metrics, all that kind of stuff. It's like care. Effectively, I think that's why we connected as well, is because this whole idea of just care, just show up and care, because people need us to care. And when people feel like they're seen and heard and loved, then they show up. Right. So incredible. Now, I don't know how much we can talk about the book, because the problem when I interview people I know offline and I'm like, I don't know how much we know. So all I will say is this, is that we're both on a book journey. And what's that been like for you? Because this is a completely different book than like a recipe book or like a smoothie book, right? And you talk about this in your podcast. I know this is on the open. You've worked with so many different kind of almost coaches and teams. You've, Azul and like a book coach. And then you went on this kind of crazy digital retreat writing and wrote like 30,000 words in 48 hours. And then you joined Scribe and, so I guess like where you're at and what can you talk about now? What can you comfortable talk about now? Like I just curious for people listening to this, who, you're listening to your journey, like where you at on your book journey?
Yeah. I'm happy to share. So I write this future vision for myself. It's like a 3-year future vision. And I wrote it in 2016, the year that I exited my company. And then I recorded it as a memo in my phone in 2017. And it's like, I'm a published author in the nonfiction personal development business space. Like, I'm saying all these things. And that dream, that vision has come true. I got a book deal with Harper Business.
I'm so glad you could talk about it, because I wasn't sure. That's why before I was like, but I just want to, I'm so glad you said that. I just want to so honor what you're just saying, because I've seen behind the scenes. And, when you showed me like your book proposal, you go through the TOCs and you helped me with mine, and it was super valuable what you shared with me. Like, I think you can cut like 80% of your book and just focus on this one thing. But I'm so glad you could share that, because I cannot wait. Like, it's such an awesome book. It's such an awesome book idea. And the fact that you got a great book deal with a really established publisher just speaks volume of your impact, especially that you're no longer attached to Simple Green Smoothie, where you can't go and say, I've got 400,000 followers that will just instantly go out, we can publish the book to, right? Like, no, you build this on your own, you put it out there, I just want to, bow my hands and just say, well done, because it's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm on the next journey of where the inner critic and all of that will come into place. But I feel like the last 2 years, I've really been swimming in book proposal land. And what is the book that I want to write? There's so many ideas. There's so many ideas. So, I feel I'm getting closer. Harper Business believed in the table of contents that I shared with them. Sure. And so that gives me at least my bumper rails, right? To stick on that path and I can move stuff around.
And it makes it real. So I haven't told you this because I've been waiting to tell you this on the show.
Yay!
So on Friday, I got a book deal for my book. I haven't accepted it. And I don't know if I'll accept it. Who knows, right? By the time of listening to this. But I wanted to keep it for announcing it with you because of the journey we've been on and because of the whole behind the scenes and stuff. And it came as a surprise. This publisher said, hey, we believe in the book. We'll send you the agreement. And I got the agreement at the time of recording this. It would have been on the Tuesday, I think. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I don't know if Dave kind of went through your contract and stuff, but I read the agreement and I panicked. I read the agreement. I was like, holy, what does this mean? Like, I didn't understand, what am I handing over? All the copyrights, all these rights. And it kind of felt really technically. And the second thing was, and a friend of mine, Graham Alcott, who's an author, published author, who's like Productive Ninja. It's like the Tim Ferriss, but in England. But,
cool.
But a cool version, I guess. And he said to me, I wonder if you're panicking because now it makes it real. Right? And I wonder did you have that? Did you have any fee? And if you didn't, that's totally cool. But was there a part of that got the agreement? You visualized it, you get this amazing deal, and then suddenly you're going, oh crap, this is actually happening now. Just talk me through what came up for you.
I'm on the other spectrum because I'm just so excited. What I write in my gratitude journal is it is such an honor that I get to share my voice and my ideas and even just a gift to be on other people's podcasts, to write in a book. I'm almost on the other side and I have to kind of reel myself back with contracts and take a little bit more time because I'm you can have it, $5, whatever. Just just get my message out there. I'm on the other side, the other that's side amazing, of the spectrum.
But that's great. So gratitude, right? So what you felt was gratitude and delight to get to share your message.
Yeah. So
cool.
Yeah. But I've gotten more smart being, I've been an entrepreneur for 12 years now and I have gotten into some tricky contract situations in the past. So I do read contracts where before I would almost be a little bit traumatized and I don't understand anything. I'm just going to sign it. Right. I wouldn't read I actually read my contracts and then I make notes. I I'll screenshot it in my iPhone notes, little circle, make marks on it. And then I'll send that back to my agent. And then also send stuff to my friends. Hey, I reached out to several author friends hey, this clause in this section, it kind of seems weird. What was in yours? And then I'm getting feedback. I would ostrich around stuff like that and money, contracts and money. I'm la, 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 la. Don't it's fine. So I'm on the other side and I have to kind of pull myself, to kind of meet in the middle where you might be on the oh my gosh, I'm not going to sign my life away. I'm whatever, it's fine.
That will get you back when your book's out and you're in full promo mode and stuff, and we'll find somebody to support you for sure. What can you tell people for now about what the kind of book and why because the smile on your face that lit up when you're I'm just excited to get an opportunity to share my message. What can you share about why you're excited about this book and what you hope this book will do in the world?
Yeah, it's really about specifically for women who are building businesses and kind of what we were talking about, the different identities that we have, right? Of how do we navigate the many roles that we carry as women in business, being moms, and when our kids are sick, like who stays at home, like just those external societal pressures. We tend to feel more guilt about things.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Also, like I've got to be healthy, and I've got to be a model for my family, and I've got to be a present, sexy, confident wife, like just all these roles and expectations of us. And then also need to run a business and lead a team and build a community and serve your clients. There's a lot externally that all entrepreneurs carry, but there's a different weight that women carry internally because of the system that it's very new for women to even work, right? Like you stay home,
let alone start businesses and having the family depend on them. And
to do it and to do it with love, and to and how do we optimize like our workflow, our creativity, our expression, and also be like step into our leadership, and how do we expand our reach and our network, and who we're building, strengthening relationships with people, and how do we connect to that bigger vision for our lives to pull us forward. That's the piece that I see a lot of women are missing, that get stuck in the business space, is they lose sight of their vision and their why.
And their power. I think there's something about, and I'll share it with you offline. There's this TEDx talk that I came across that for some reason really touched me. And it's the CEO. She's a founder. She's the CEO of this company. And she talks about, I forgot what the gist of like the message is, but it's more how I felt when I watched it. But it's along the lines of how she'd stopped being a woman in leadership. Like she was just trying to be a man and leading like from a man's perspective. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I will say this is like, it's like a very difficult experience happens to her. And she is in the middle of a meeting when this is going on. And she's like, if that were a man, so it's like, it's a really interesting thing. Have a look at that, because she might be someone interesting to chat to at some point. But I'm also conscious of the time and I want to be respectful. But I'm really excited about your book and where it's going to go. Do you have like a time frame? Have they told like, okay, we'll look at 18 months, so it's 2023? I mean,
2022.
Ah, cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to be writing a lot, and really, I'm going to, I actually signed up for the virtual writing retreat again.
Of course,
I booked a retreat with my friend Jennifer Kim for us to kind of stay in a cabin, like an hour away from us. And I just also want to add, like Toni Morrison talks about write the book that you wish you could have read. I'm kind of botching that quote a little bit, but that's really the big why behind the book is I read Tim Ferriss, right? And he's like this single white guy, Ivy League college. Like, I have no college degree. I'm a mom, I'm a woman of color. And I was $42,000 in credit card debt and just like closed down my first business. And I just reading all these books, I didn't know if it was actually possible for me. I followed Chris Gilbo's $100 Startup, and I just wanted a book that was like proof of possibility, that a mom, like a present mom, an ambitious entrepreneur, a creative who might not have all the fancy degrees and titles, could actually build something meaningful and impactful in the world. And so that's like the big why behind the book, is to be that. Yeah.
That's powerful, right? Because it's, what I love about what you're saying is it's almost like, well, it's not that you're the opposite of Tim Ferriss, but yes, and yet you are, because it's kind of like I tick all these boxes that are meant to not have a representation of success and being able to mix all of these worlds. And you're going to be that beacon of hope for people who need to hear your story. We need to hear that there is a way that you can, it's not because you're a woman, you're a mom, you're all these things, you don't have an education, that you can't go out and build something that you love and that you can be proud of and that your family can be proud of. So that's really cool. But before I ask you my final questions, I just want to take a moment and say thanks. That's it. Just heartfelt thanks for you having reached out to support and help me when I was struggling with my book, TOC. You're like, hey, let me have a look. And you went, jumped on, and you kind of looked at, and all the lovely comments that you've been putting on the Facebook group and support, and just even like our of Voxer kind of chats and exchanging family photos and stuff. It's just been really cool and we've never met in person, right? So I really, really appreciate that. And also, I'm genuinely excited about your book. I remember when you were pitching it to me, not in a pitching kind of sense, but when you're sharing the ideas, I was like, oh my God, this is so needed. Like, this is so needed. And it feels like, yes, it's been a couple of years of a journey that you've been on, but wow, boy, is it better that you took 2 years and done the right book than rushed it in 6 months and then not be proud of it or regret it, or worse, not want to share it. So I can't wait. And the invitation's open when it's out and you're in full promo mode and you need to like drop 100 podcasts in like 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Count on me. Even if you just want me to do a readout, whatever it is, like super happy to do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So what does being unconventional mean to you?
Ooh, I love this question. I feel I am truly an unconventionalist for sure. It's just taking the path, like the path less, like the road less traveled, right? That we really do things the way that we want to do them, even if it doesn't make sense on paper. Really making decisions from your heart, and kind of going against the grain of what's expected. Like, I don't need to build a unicorn company. I just want to build a company that sustains my lifestyle and allows me to make a difference in other people's lives. So not getting caught up in what society expects of us and just doing what our hearts, really are calling us to do.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Jadah, where can people connect with you online? What's the best place to go and check out, find out more, join your newsletter, listen to your podcast, find all the resources? Where's like your home?
Yeah, my home is jadahtsellner.com, and my dance floor that I like to say, like on social media, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, although I spend at Jadah Sellner, but I spend most of my time connecting with my community through my podcast, which is the Lead with Love podcast.
Yes, it is. And it's awesome. Jadah, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate you and looking forward to connecting with you when your book comes out on the next podcast.
Next year. Let's do this. Thank you, Mark.
There you have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. I really appreciated Jadah's honesty and that we could celebrate all together her incredible book deal. And I really enjoyed her support. And I'm telling you, it's not just her saying that she does not leave a comment behind. She really does. I've seen her active in community and she is constantly giving and sharing and offering and help. And just goes to show, no wonder that she managed to organically grow her previous company to a huge amount in such a little record time, just by deeply caring. So if we take anything today, is just care enough, connect on a one-to-one personal level, and let the rest take care of itself. If you enjoyed anything from today, make sure to let us know by leaving a rating and review under this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you're listening to this over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It helps, it grows the show, it helps raise the impact. So without further ado, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. And if you're interested in learning how to tell your story in such a way that it feels that you are connecting to the right kind of people and attracting the right kind of opportunities, I want to help you. I spent the last almost decade interviewing people and getting their stories out of them. And now I want to help that with you. And I want to teach you everything I've learned about how to take your story constructed in such a way that people listen. If that sounds like you, make sure to get in touch. I'll put all the links in the show notes below. We're kicking off on the 18th of February, 2021, and I hope to count you among us. Till then, stay true, be brave, be kind, and let it rip. I'll see you next time.